Welcome to another video. This is volume 2 of the Microsoft Excel session. Right. So today we are going to take an in-depth look at sheets, cells, rows, and columns. Right. Now, in the previous session, I highlighted that, or I said that this entire section is called a column, and this entire section is the rows. So when you take from here down here, they are all rows, right? And then the A up to U here are the columns. However, Excel extends more than what we see here. So if I click one cell and I press Control and the forward arrow key, you can see that this is where it ends. I mean the column ends, XFD, right? So it starts from A to Z, and then from Z you have AA, AB till AZ, right? Right. So from AZ you start from B, so you get to XFD. So I'll press Control and then the back arrow, and it will come back. And when you press Control and then the down arrow, it takes you to, that's about 1,048,576 rows. I bet you cannot actually use all these rows in one Excel sheet. Okay, and then I also explained that we have a workbook and we have a worksheet, right? The workbook is this whole Excel file, so you can see book 1 here. Now, this is what you see here, right? It's the sheet. So a sheet is just made up of columns and rows. The sheet is made up of columns and rows. Now we can add multiple sheets by just clicking on the plus icon here. And if I want to rename a sheet, I can just right click and then rename. So let's say data, right? And I'll just put this one record, and I will say this is results. Now I could also hide the sheets. So let's say I have some maybe formula or data declaration that I wouldn't want people to see, so I will just have it in the background whilst it does its own thing. So let's say this sheet is for calculating some payroll or some formula or whatever it is, right? So I'll put all the formulas, maybe how it calculates an employee salary, how it calculates their allowances, how it calculates their bonuses on this data sheet. Then I can just also right click and then hide the sheet this way. So this way the sheet will be in the background. It will still be functional, right? If you call on that formula, it will still work. Okay, so the sheet will be in the background working, but users will not see it. So if I would want to bring it back, I will just have to right click on any of the visible sheets and then click on hide, right? And then you can see that this is the name of the sheet. Now click OK. Now we can also choose to delete the sheets by just right clicking. So let's say I would want to delete this result sheet. I'll just right click, it's this way, and then I'll click on delete, right? And then in adding the sheets, I can also right click and then I'll choose insert. And then here I can choose either worksheet or I'll choose a chart. So from here I could insert different kind of stuff. Like this, in this case, I would just want to insert a sheet, a worksheet. So I'll choose the worksheet and then okay, and to add a new sheet for me. So that's just about sheet adding, renaming, and then hiding or hiding sheets. Now let's also look at basic data entries. Now, in the previous session, I also said that this bar is called a formula bar. You can use it to enter data into the sheet, but there are two ways of entering data into a sheet. You can either you can just type into the cell directly, or you use the formula bar. In either ways, it works, right? So let's say I want to type, right? So this data, and after you type any data or you enter any data into any cell, you will have to press the enter key, or you just click out of the cell, right? It's this in the same vein. If you use the formula bar, let's say you type 12, you still have to press enter for it to reflect in the cell. Now, if I would want to delete a record, now the data in a cell, I forgot to mention in the previous session, the data in a cell, right, is called a record. So this is a record. 12 is a record in cell C2. 24 is a record in cell B2. So I also spoke about cells are named by the column letter and the row number. So the intersection is what we used to call the cell. So this one is in the intersection of what? C and then row 2, column C and then row 2. So C2, right? This is here is in column D, row 2. So that is why we have it here like this. Okay. Now, these are the two ways of entering data into a cell. So I'll go ahead and then add some more data. Right now, we are going to look at inserting cells, inserting rows, inserting columns. Now, if I want to insert a row above row 4, what I will do is I will right click on the row number, that is row 4, and I will just choose insert, and then it will insert a row above row 4, right? So this time that new row becomes row 4 and the old row becomes row 5. However, there is something we call inserting cells. Now, if I want to insert a cell above row 5, what I'll do is I'll right click on the cell this way, I'll choose insert, and then now it asks me, do I want to shift cells down, shift cells right, or the entire row, or the column? In this case, I just want to insert the cell above cell C3, right? So I want to shift this cell down. So I'll maintain this and then I'll press OK. So you can see that 5 is now shift down, including the 7, because we inserted a cell here. So everything below it will come down. Okay. So let me use cell C2. Right click, insert. Now this time I'll shift the cell right. Okay, so I'll choose shift cells right, and I'll choose OK. And you can see that it shifts both 12, 3 to the right. I hope I am making some sense here. So now let's look at deleting a row and a column. So if, say, I want to delete this row, this entire row, I will just right click and then delete. It shifts the row at the bottom, everything at the bottom up, and then gets rid of the one I deleted. But then if I want to just delete a cell, for example this one, so I want to delete this cell and then shift 20 to the left. So I'll just right click on the cell, delete, and then this time I'll choose what? Shift cells left. So let's see what happens. 20 is shift to the left. Now I'll delete the cell above 20. This time I'm shifting the cells up. So I'll right click, delete, and then shift cells up. 20 and then the 7 comes up. However, if you want to use your keyboard, with the keyboard, pressing the delete button will only clear the content, but not deleting the cells. So let's say I right click, I click on cell C3, that is the 20, and I press delete. It clears the content. It's just like right clicking cell B3 and then choosing clear content. Now, somebody might ask, so what about pressing the backspace? Now, when you press the backspace, it's also the same as deleting the content or erasing a record. But pressing the backspace on the keyboard will activate the cursor again for you to enter another value. Now, in this case, when you press the escape button, it will still maintain the old record that was in the cell. So if I press escape, you can see that the 12 comes back. But if I press the backspace and then press enter, it also deletes the record in the cell. So I'll undo and bring the 12 back. So that is also about inserting and deleting cells or columns. Let's look at resizing the row and then column. In most times, it would be resizing columns more than rows. You will be resizing columns more than rows, in the sense that everything that you type fills in the column in a straight line like this. It doesn't fill this way. Now I will erase this by just doing undo, and I'll type this text is too large. You press enter. Now you can see that the text is long, so it has overprinted to what? Cell B1. But then when you click on cell B1, the text is not there because you type the text in only cell A, even though it is looking like that. If I type anything in cell B, you see that the text in cell A is cut short. Now this is where resizing the columns comes in. Now if you want to resize a column, you just have to put it in between the line in between in between the columns. So the one after and the one before, there is a line there. The cursor will change to a resize cursor or a resize symbol. Then you just click and drag this way, and then it will resize it, right? I will undo this action. Now the default is 8.10, that is 88 pixels. However, if I want to resize multiple columns, what I will do is I will just select the columns first. So let's say I want to resize column A to E. I want to resize column A to E. I will just select all of them, and in between any of the column lines, so I can use this one, I can use this one, I can use this one. So in this case, I will use this. The size that I'll resize one column is the size that all the others from A to D is going to take, right? So in this case, I'm resizing it towards 13.90, which is 146 pixels. If I let go, all of the other columns are going to take the same size. So you can see that this one is also 13.90. Column A is also 13.90. Like that. I will undo this and then we'll look at another one. However, if I just want the columns to fit according to the data size or according to the input size in each cell, I will do the same by selecting all the columns that has records or that has data, and I will just double click on any. So in this case, this time I will use this one. I will just double click, and you can see that the columns has been resized according to the data size or according to the input size. So the longer one becomes longer, the smaller ones become smaller, right? So the same way with rows. Okay, if I want to resize multiple rows, I will just select them this way, and then I'll just use one of the lines and then stretch it. And you can see that my rows are stretched. If I double click, it will go back to the size it was earlier. However, if I wouldn't want to use this way, anyway, this way is more faster, but if I still want to use another way, I can just select this way, or just select one cell like this. I'll come here to the format and I'll choose what. So when we select a cell, you have the opportunity to either do row height or column width. So in this case, I'm doing column width. So I want to change the column width to 20. Let's see what happens in cell A1. So cell A1 is stretched more. Okay. Now, if I want to have the same size for column A to column E, I can come here. I'll use column width and then I'll type 20. You can as well also right click and then choose column width, and then I'll choose, let's say, 18. So you can also do same for the rows as well. I will leave that one to you to practice. Now, if you want to do the auto fit, as in what you do by double clicking, okay, I'll undo this action. You can also still come here to the format and you do what? Auto fit column width, and it will do the same thing for you. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention was inserting multiple rows or columns. Now, say I want to insert 3 columns, okay, after column B. Then I'll have to select 3 columns after column B, right click and choose insert. It will insert another 3 columns after column B. But what happens is that it takes the formatting type of column B. It takes what? The formatting type of column B. So if I want to insert another 3 columns after column each, let's see what happens. I'll drag 3 columns this way, right click, insert. What does it happen? It also takes what? The formatting type or the formatting attribute of column H. Now let's look at rows. So watch, I want to insert 3 rows before row 2. So I'll right click, insert, and then 3 rows are what? Inserted above it. So now let's look at cells. I want to insert a cell above cell B5. Okay, so what happens? I'll right click, insert, then I'll choose shift cells down. Let's see what happens. So the data shifts down and then you have it above. The same way, if I want to insert it to I will set it to the left. It means that I'll have to shift these cells to the right. So I'll right click, set, and then shift to the right. And there you go. Now, one last thing, and I'll end this session, is moving data around. Now, if I have this data, the data on sheet 4, and I want to bring it to the record sheet, what I'll just do is I'll click here this way. So I just want to, this time I want to move the data. Okay, so I'll cut. Now I can just go ahead and then do Control plus X, or I'll right click here and I'll choose cut from the menu. I'll come to the record, right click, and then paste. If you come to sheet 4, the data has disappeared. Now, if I want to just copy, right click, choose copy, or I'll do Control C, come to the record sheet, I'll right click where I would want to paste it, right click, and then choose what? Paste. Now, you can see this paste special here. We'll talk about it in the next session. But in this time, we'll just do paste. Okay, or you can also do Control V, Control plus V, and then you have your data pasted like that. Okay, so I'll create another workbook. I taught you how to create a new workbook in the previous session. You can either go to File and then go to New and select a new blank book, or you can just do Control N. And in the newer versions of Excel, you have something we call Excel tabs. So you can just go ahead and go to the tab, and then you click on the new. You can see that the shortcut is there, and you have a new workbook created. So you can see this one is workbook 2. So these are two different workbooks. Okay, in the previous versions of Excel, you will see them in different windows, but the new versions of Excel have included what we call Excel tabs. So you are able to have tabs. So instead of having two different windows of Excel, you now can work in tabs, just like how you work in your browsers. But they are two different books altogether. This is not one file. If I close these two, if I save them and close them right now, they will be saved as two different files. They will be saved as two different files. So if I open one the next time, I will only see one tab. So if I have two files, I have a book 1 and book 2, and the next time I open book 1, I wouldn't come and see book 2 in this tab. I will only see book 1. So that was just by the way. So let's say I want to move the record sheet to another workbook. Now, before, if you can move a worksheet to a workbook, that workbook needs to be open. Now, if the workbook is not open, you cannot move a sheet to that workbook. Right. I want to move the record sheet to what? The book 2. So I will just do that by right clicking, choose what? Move or copy. So what do I want to move? I want to move the record sheet to what? Book 2. Okay. You can see the move selected sheet to what? Book 2. Now, if I click OK, what happens? It brings me to what? Book 2, and I can see that the record sheet is now in book 2. Let's go back to book 1 and see that it is not here. Now, I want us to move sheet 4 to book 2 as well. No, this time let's copy. So I want us to copy the sheet 4 to book 2, right? So I right click, I'll go to move or copy. I'll select what book? Book 2. And this time I have to check what? Create copy. Now, if I don't check this, it will also move the sheet totally to the next, to the book that I'm moving it to. But this time I'll use what? Create copy. And this time I don't want to insert it before the record book. I want to insert it to the end. I don't know if you realize, I should have mentioned it, but I realized that when I move the record sheet, it was inserted before sheet 1. But this time I want to move it to the end. So sheet 1 will be in between the record sheet and then sheet 4. So I'll press OK. And you can see that it is at the exact position that I have. When you go back to book 1, you will see that we still have what? Sheet 4 there. So that is just about it. I hope you learned something. We'll meet in another session for a new lesson. Thank you for watching.